This story was about the 6 brave heroes who were chosen by the goddess of fortune to fight and save the world from the invasion of demons. They were known as the Braves of the 6 Flowers, and one of those who dreamed of being included in this group was Adlet, who considered himself to be the strongest person in the world. One day, while the contest and the fight between Batol and Quanto were being held in the kingdom, Adlet entered the scene and challenged them both. The 2 warriors did not take him seriously and let the soldiers take care of him. Then Adlet was being surrounded by the soldiers. When the soldiers approached him, he immediately attacked using his daggers and easily defeated them all. Because of this, Batol and Quanto were forced to fight against Adlet. He attacked Batol and defeated him immediately, while Quanto fell into his trap and could not fight any longer. After that, he spoke in front of the statue of the goddess of fortune to choose him as one of the 6 braves, but he was immediately caught and was beaten by the people. While in jail, he was visited by a woman who told him that she was his fan. She talked to him and said that she wanted to get to know him better. So he decided to tell the story of his past and about the person who trained him to defeat the demons. The woman asked him if he really wanted to be among the 6 braves. He immediately said yes to her because he had to defeat the demon god. Because of this, they talked about the invasion of demons on the continent hundreds of years ago, and the saint of the single flower who defeated the demon god. But he said that the demon god was not dead yet and one day he would wake up again to sow terror. And in order to defeat it, there were 6 heroes who would inherit its power to fight for peace. These 6 heroes would have a mark on their bodies as a proof that they were the braves of the 6 flowers. Since there were numerous demons that were being spotted in different areas, it was possible that the demon god was about to wake up again. And they need not to wait long because the chosen 6 braves would soon be completed. Then the woman advised Adlet to stay in jail until his injuries healed. One day, Adlet was sentenced to life imprisonment by the people. Because of this, he was transferred to a prison where the prisoners spent their days until they die. After a few days, his injury was healed and he was thinking of escaping from his prison. One night, the sky suddenly turned red at the same time they heard strange noises. Adlet suddenly woke up and he was surprised that his hand received a mark as a proof that he was one of the chosen to become a member of the 6 braves. The woman who visited him before came there and introduced herself as Natchatanya, who was a princess and the Saint of Blades. When Adlet saw the mark on her chest, he also told her that he was chosen as one of the 6 braves by showing his mark on his hand. Using Natchatanya's power, she broke the bars on Adlet's prison. They immediately ran away and they saw 2 horses waiting which they would use to escape the area. When they left the kingdom, Adlet decided to go through their village first because he wanted to get something. Then they continued to travel to the abode of the demon god and look for the other chosen ones. While on the way they talked about Goldov, who was the leader of Piena's Blackhorn Knights. Natchatanya said that she once fought him in the tournament. She added that he left 6 months ago to look for the killer who was responsible for the deaths of the potential 6 braves, including the other saints like her. Suddenly, they saw a family who was in a hurry and was terrified about something. Natchatanya approached them and asked what happened. Then they answered that they were evacuating because the monsters arrived at their village and attacked them. Adlet immediately went to it and saw the monsters attacking the people. He rushed to attack the monsters while Natchatanya backed him up and they defeat the enemies easily. Adlet asked one of them if there was anyone left in their village. There was a female traveler who was left in their village. Adlet was about to go to the village, but Natchatanya stopped him because they might not be able to handle the situation anymore, and that they may not be able to save everyone all the time. Adlet agreed that it was not easy to defeat the demon god and rescue all those in need at the same time. Natchatanya thought that Adlet would not continue on his plan, but when she let go of her grip on the horse, Adlet immediately pulled the horse lead rope and left, saying that he would go to save that person because he was the strongest man in the world. Natchatanya was about to follow him, but the monsters suddenly came and attacked the people again. When Adlet arrived in the village, he immediately saw the woman who was holding a gun. She noticed him immediately, and when he was about to approach her, she immediately pointed her gun at him. Adlet quickly introduced himself as one of the 6 braves, and the woman also introduced herself as Flamey, who was also among the 6 braves and the Saint of Gunpowder. Flamey thought that Adlet also had a plan to kill her, so she did not lower her gun. While Natchatanya killed all the monsters, but she was sad that her horse also died. Suddenly Goldov arrived, who was also one of the chosen as 6 braves, which was already expected by Nachitanya. Goldov knelt in front of her and promised to protect her. Then they discussed the information that Goldov had gathered about the brave killer. It was a person whose name was Flamey, with a white hair and carrying a gun. They had no idea that this person was currently with Adlet. Flamey did not want to go with Adlet and decided to fight the demon god alone. Then she decided to leave immediately. Adlet let his horse go back and quickly followed Flamey until he reached her location. Flamey told him that she would only die if he met with the other members of the 6 braves. After that, she ran away from Adlet again, but he threw a smoker at her and immediately grabbed Flamey's bullet case. In the end, Adlet managed to get Flamey's approval to go with him. When Nachitanya and Goldov arrived at the village where Adlet went to, they fought some monsters that they immediately defeated. Then they saw Adlet's horse carrying a letter for Nachitanya, and it said that he had seen another member of 6 braves and informed her that she could go ahead to their destination. So Nachitanya and Goldov continued their journey, while Adlet and Flamey were also on their way. After a while, Adlet and Flamey could see the place where the demon god was located. They also saw a fortress which was smoking, and Adlet got worried for the people in the area, so they went to it. When they got there, there were casualties from an attack. Then they met Lauren, who was a private first class of the Gwenbier army and the commander of this fortress. He showed them the barrier called the Phantasmal Barrier that would supposedly prevent the monsters from getting past through its only passage to the continent. There was a nearby temple that would be used to activate this barrier. The Saint of Mountains and one of the 6 braves, named Mora, was currently there. Mora would give them the signal to go to the temple and activate the barrier. He also showed them the replica of the altar and how to activate the barrier. After that, Adlet and Flamey continued their journey. While on their way, Nachitanya attacked Flamey and she retaliated against her. Goldov also rushed, but Adlet stopped him, as Flamey and Nachitanya continued to fight. They only stopped the fight when Adlet said that Flamey was also one of the 6 braves, which surprised Nachitanya. But Nachitanya told him that Flamey was the brave killer. Then Flamey immediately admitted this accusation on her. She said that she did this so that the demon god could return. Nachitanya immediately attacked after hearing this, but Adlet blocked her. He told her that he did not believe what Flamey said because her true intention was to defeat the demon god too. And she would not be chosen as one of the 6 braves if she planned to help the demon god. Adlet believed that Flamey had another reason why she did those things. Nachitanya could not do anything about it and stopped attacking Flamey. Then they continued walking towards Mora's location. Not far from them, they saw flying monsters which carrying bombs. Adlet ran immediately and he was followed by the others, thinking that the monsters were blasting the phantasmal barrier. They met these monsters on their way, so Goldov rushed at them. Chaitanya also helped in attacking these monsters, and she told Adlet to go to the temple first. When he reached the temple, he saw a woman lying down. He immediately approached her and she told him to enter the temple. Since the door still needed a key, but he did not have it, so he decided to just blow it up. Then it opened on its own and Adlet was about to enter when someone suddenly rushed at him. Then the woman changed its form and became a monster, and it immediately ran away from the temple. The area was suddenly surrounded by fog. So he decided to enter the temple, and there he found the altar that would activate the phantasmal barrier. He approached it and was surprised that someone had activated it. Nachitanya and Goldov arrived and also approached the altar. Then Goldov tried to remove the sword, thinking it would clear the fog outside, but it did not work. Nachitanya snatched the sword from Adlet, but it suddenly got out of control. Fortunately, Flamey came and bring it at ease. Chimot, the Saint of Swamps and also one of the 6 braves, arrived there. He was about to try to attack Flamey because he also knew that she was the brave killer, but Nachitanya stopped him. Mora also arrived and told them that there was an outsider among them, and others were wondering who it was. Then Hans, who told them that he was also one of the 6 braves, entered. Instead of only 6, the members became 7. Adlet immediately told everyone to show their mark. They showed it one by one and all 7 of them had it. And they now had one problem other than the monsters and the demon gods. They immediately thought that one of them was a fake or an imposter who could be an enemy and could affect their mission. While they still could not determine who could be the imposter, Adlet and Hans decided to go out of the temple, and they confirmed that the barrier was active because they could not get out of the area surrounded by fog. When they returned, Adlet saw that Flamey was tied up. Mora wanted everyone to introduce themselves and share what they did before they all met. They believed that this may help to identify the imposter among them. Adlet introduced himself first, followed by Natchatanya, the other Braves, and finally Flamey. Flamey begged Mora to remove her eye patch. They were surprised to see the horn on Flamey's forehead and the eye similar to the beast. According to Flamey, her parents were a monster and a human. She also said that she was made to serve as a bait to fight against the 6 Braves in the event that the demon god's supposed to wake up. She was also raised by her monster mother until she became a saint of gunpowder. Then Mora asked why she decided and wanted to defeat the demon god. Flamey just said that even if she told them the reason, they would not believe her either. The only thing she assured them was that she was not the fake one among the 7. Hans agreed to this because if Flamey was the fake one, Adlet would not be alive until then, because if they look at it, Flamey had many opportunities to get rid of him. This information helped to reduce the suspicion on Flamey. Mora asked Adlet to tell them what happened in the temple before and after the barrier was activated. After Adlet said everything, Hans doubted him and made him as the main culprit in activating the barrier. No matter how Adlet explained it to them, they did not believe him anymore. The other 6 Braves agreed with Hans' accusations against Adlet except Natchatanya. Before their judgment, Mora wanted to gather more information before they kill Adlet, and asked the others what they thought about him. When Goldov was asked by Mora, he suddenly rushed at Adlet and was about to attack Hans too, but Adlet blew up one of his weapons. He quickly went behind Flamey and made her a hostage. Because of this, he was able to leave the temple carrying Flamey, but he was hit on his back by Hans' attack. When Mora and the others were about to follow them, Adlet left some traps to stop them. Adlet got away, but he lost consciousness due to the injury he suffered from Hans' attack. By nightfall, they still could not find Adlet and decided to continue the search the next day. While Hans was worried that Adlet might kill Flamey, when Mora saw Hans's mark, she made sure to him that Flamey was still alive, because the petals on the mark were complete. It would only be reduced if one of the 6 Braves died. While Adlet was still unconscious, he dreamed of his past. When he woke up, someone had treated his wound and it was Flamey. Then she said that she was 99% sure that Adlet was not the imposter. They also discussed what happened at the temple and the possibilities that it activated and how it activated the barrier. According to Adlet, the imposter might have an 8th accomplice among them. That's why the 7th or the imposter who was with them set him up, the strongest person in the world, to become the enemy of the other 6 Braves. He begged Flamey to find the 8th person, but Flamey just refused to do this. Then she suddenly asked him why he wanted to be included in the 6 Braves. When after all, he was just an ordinary person and just carrying different types of weapons. She even asked how could he possibly get stronger with such a weak body. So Adlet talked about his training at the hands of his master, who taught him how to use different weapons and on how to make them. Then Flamey told him that she already met the master that he was talking about, who was also on her list. And as far as she knew, all of its students gave up because of the difficulty of the training. So Flamey asked Adlet how he managed to endure this training. So Adlet told the story of the past when a monster came to their village to talk to their leader. The next day, after the monster left, their village leader informed them that they would move to the place of demons and that the demon god would start to lead them. And those who would not agree to this would have their hearts removed and offered to the demon god as a proof of their loyalty to him. Because they objected to this, his best friend died while saving him, and also his brother, who sacrificed himself so he could escape. This was what pushed him to endure the training and made himself stronger. Flamey felt jealous of Adlet because of her situation. Despite of all she did for the demons, his mother wanted to kill her just because she failed to defeat Chimot, and she was also chased away by other monsters that she thought were her allies. She wanted to defeat the demon god to show her mother her resentment from what she did when they drove her away. Adlet realized that the reason why he felt comfortable with Flamey was because they both went through almost the same thing, who trusted someone and lost their own home. Flamey decided to go back to the temple, and she gave Adlet something that only Flamey would know in case Adlet threw it and it exploded. When Flamey arrived at the temple, Mora and Goldov were keeping their watch outside. Then they told her to rest inside the temple. The next day, they decided to look for Adlet again. Mora and Flamey were paired. Then Nachitanya and Goldov would look together too, while Chimot would do it alone and Hans would be left in the temple to watch over it. Before they could leave, Flamey was stopped by Hans, who asked if she could really fight the monsters, especially her mother. Hans doubted that Flamey could do it because of his experiences with his previous clients who had family feuds. When Mora told Flamey that they were leaving, Hans just let them go. Nachitanya talked to Goldov about her plan to help Adlet to prove that he was not the imposter. She told him that she had a hunch that it was Hans, who was the imposter among them. Adlet had also taken action to investigate the temple and find out who was the seventh person and its alleged accomplice who was the eighth person. As soon as he reached the temple, Hans immediately attacked him. They started to fight each other and Goldov felt it. Hans managed to capture Adlet, but he also escaped using his smokes. Hans still followed Adlet and they fought again in the forest. Adlet faced him and removed all the weapons he was carrying, then chose to use a sword in their fight. Hans looked around him because he knew Adlet was planning something against him. It turned out that it was coming directly from Adlet's sword, but he missed hitting Hans. Since Adlet did not have any weapons, he saw this as an opportunity to tell Hans that he was not the fake one among the Braves. Then Hans suddenly told him that he was the imposter, so Adlet immediately took his weapons, but Hans got ahead of him. Suddenly Adlet was awakened from the illusion created by Hans to test if Adlet was telling the truth based on his reaction when he said that he was the imposter. Hans proved that Adlet was not the imposter, and the two of them decided to work together to identify who was trying to ruin the six Braves. While Flamey told Mora where Adlet stayed the other night and they both went to it. Then Mora told Flamey to kill Adlet immediately once she sees him. While Goldov and Nachitanya were chatting, they went to the place where the six Braves were supposed to meet. Nachitanya insisted that this was the place where Hans received information from the monsters. Suddenly, Goldov confronted her because he did not like her defending Adlet, so they argued. When Hans and Adlet returned to the temple, they began to investigate the area around it. Then Hans asked Adlet how to activate the barrier because he had not been able to go to the fortress. Suddenly, Adlet wondered who among the seven knew how to activate the barrier. He also thought that Chimot, like Hans, was also one of those who did not know how to do it. So Adlet begged Hans to ask Chimot because he wanted to know something. When Hans clarified what he was going to ask to Chimot, Adlet saw someone pass by the door of the temple, so he immediately went to check on it. Then they saw Chimot outside. Chimot suddenly said that he would kill the other six Braves one by one except Mora. And he would start it with Adlet to make sure that he could kill the fake one among them. From its mouth, it released swamp waters that gradually turned into monsters. These monsters rushed at Adlet and Hans, which made them run away. They tried to attack the monsters, but they regenerated quickly after every attack. Chimot increased the number of the monsters, and no matter what attack Adlet and Hans did on them, they could come back to their whole form again. Adlet thought of a way to defeat Chimot, and when they succeeded on this plan, they immediately tied Chimot. They brought him inside the temple and Adlet asked him if he knew about the barrier before he entered the temple. Flamey felt that Chimot was fighting someone, so they quickly returned to the temple. Then Adlet decided to go to Flamey to talk to her. Before he left, Hans warned him that she was dangerous because of her past and her way of life. But Adlet still continued, and when he was away from Hans, he threw the thing that Flamey gave him so she would know where he was. Then he waited for her to come to him. A few minutes later, Flamey arrived to his location. Then Adlet told Flamey that he already knew what the imposter had planned, and this was also what Hans told Mora when she arrived at the temple. Adlet said to her that the barrier was not activated yet. The imposter set them up and made it look that the barrier was active when he entered the temple. They all know how to activate the barrier from Lauren's teachings. Because of this, Adlet had a hunch that Lauren was possibly an accomplice of the imposter, and they were wrongly instructed on how to activate the barrier and deceived them all. After Lauren taught them how to activate the barrier, they used the monsters to force them to enter the temple. Adlet added that they just waited for him to open the temple, and when he did, they surrounded the forest and the temple with fog. And by this, they made it look like that the barrier had been activated and the person who did it just ran away. But the truth was that, at that time the barrier had not been activated yet, they could only see the normal fog. And while they were trying one by one to deactivate the barrier, the imposter got the chance to activate the barrier by himself. Until they got into an argument where he was accused as an imposter and the real imposter's plan was completed. But Flamey told him that there was something missing from what Adlet had said, which was also important. She said that fog could not simply surround the entire forest and the temple so quickly, even if it was the saint who created this barrier was the fog saint USPA. She added that it would take another 15 minutes before the entire forest would be filled with fog. But what happened was that the forest was immediately surrounded by fog in an instant. Then Flamey showed him the ones that were turned on that supposedly had the power of a phantasmal berry. These things were placed throughout the forest so that the fog would spread quickly in case the barrier was activated. As for Adlet, there might be someone else who made a barrier in the area. Flamey replied that it was impossible to put another barrier in the area because only one barrier could be placed in the same place. Aside from that, the other barrier would be disabled if two barriers were placed at the same time. And it was also impossible to clear the fog without the power of the phantasmal barrier. Because of this, Flamey could see that Adlet's words were impossible, and this was what Mora also thought after hearing what Hans said. Mora added that Adlet's plan was to win their trust and eventually made them fight each other. At that moment, Flamey planned to kill Adlet, but according to him, if he died, the imposter would surely come after her and put all the blame on her. So he said that as long as he was alive, no one would suspect Flamey. Adlet was about to leave, but Flamey stopped him. As she pointed the gun at him, Flamey asked Adlet why he was still protecting her and never suspected anything bad about her. Adlet replied and admitted that he already liked her, ever since the day he saw her in the village. Based on Adlet's answers, Flamey was sure that Adlet was her opponent, so she shot him, but he avoided it. The other 6 braves heard the gunshots, and Natchatanya and Goldov immediately run to check what happened. Mora released her power and used it to inform Natchatanya, Goldov and Flamey that Hans' condition was critical because of what Adlet did to her. She also ordered them to kill Adlet right away once they saw him because he was the imposter. Hans tried to stop Mora, but Chimot mobilized his pets to make Hans let go of Mora. On the other hand, Flamey did not stop attacking Adlet after she heard Mora's words. Using her power, she sent a signal to show to the other 6 braves their location. Flamey continued to attack Adlet until Mora arrived, who immediately used a strong punch which Adlet avoided. Mora led the attack on Adlet while Flamey backed her up in the fight. When Adlet released his smoke, they saw him standing nearby. Mora was about to attack him when Flamey suddenly fired and told Mora that Adlet had surrendered. When Adlet knelt down, he said that he was going to prove that Flamey was not the imposter. He took a medicine and asked Flamey for a bullet, then he sprayed something on it. An object touched by the monster turned red after being sprayed. He also told Mora that he did it on the altar and nothing turned red. So Flamey, who was a half-monster, definitely did not touch the altar. Mora did not consider his explanation and still rushed at Adlet, but Flamey shot her. Mora was once again would try to attack Adlet, but Flamey had released an explosive, so Adlet ran right away and took Flamey with him. Natchatanya and Goldov intercepted them, and Natchatanya used her magic to attack them. She repeatedly attacked to kill Adlet, and Goldov also rushed at them, but Flamey helped Adlet and tried to protect him from the two. Natchatanya chased after Adlet, and because of this Flamey was left to fight against Goldov and Mora. When Adlet arrived at the temple, he tried to call Hans, but Hans did not answer. Until Natchatanya came and used her power to attack him. Natchatanya continued to attack the Adlet until his injuries increased and made it difficult for him to move. When Natchatanya was about to stab and kill Adlet, he was able to block it and kick Natchatanya. When Goldov arrived, Adlet quickly left, but Goldov caught up with him. He attacked Adlet and they end up in the area where they fought the monsters before they went to the temple. Mora and Natchatanya also came and ordered Goldov to kill Adlet immediately. But Goldov wanted to get information from Adlet first before they kill him. Natchatanya was surprised to see Hans and Chimot approaching. They learned the truth and Mora apologized about her lies earlier. Adlet repeated his previous hunch that the barrier was only activated after he entered the temple. But according to Mora, this was impossible because the Saint of Fog could not do it right away. Then Adlet revealed that there was a saint who had the ability to release fog in a short period of time. But he was not able to release it directly using its power. Instead, the saint accompanied it with science. So Adlet explained to them how a normal fog was formed. He said that if the temperature of the area was high, more water vapor would form. Since the area was close to the sea, the humidity there was always high. So if the temperature suddenly dropped, there would definitely be a fog right away. Mora was asked by Adlet how the temperature could drop so suddenly that even the saint of ice or snow would have to create a barrier to do this. Then Adlet told them that it was not necessary to lower the temperature, but to increase it first. And the saint who could do this was the saint of sun, named Ryura, who had been missing for a month. It's possible that the monsters took Ryura to forcefully increase the temperature of the forest because maybe Ryura's relatives were taken hostage or something. And this might be the reason why it was hot when they arrived in the forest. And if they could also notice in the fortress, it looked like it was attacked by monsters and fortunately only few survived. Or it might be that they were deliberately helping the monsters in the first place and gave wrong information to the 6 braves in activating the barrier. The imposter used the monsters to get them to the temple, and when he blew up the entrance, it served as a signal to kill the Saint of Sun or Ryura. As soon as his power was gone, the temperature of the forest immediately dropped. And when he was about to chase the monster, the fog had already formed and tricked them all into thinking that the barrier had been activated at that moment. When the imposter succeeded in activating the barrier, it just waited for him to be accused and be killed as an imposter. The question now was, where did the monsters hid Ryura's body? Hans found it and Mora confirmed that it was indeed Ryura. Because of this, Mora accepted that Adlet was not the imposter, but Adlet suddenly fell to the ground. Then Adlet said that Mora was the imposter among them because she was the only one who had done suspicious things. But according to Chamote, Mora was not the imposter. He showed what he and Hans found when they dug in the temple. They said that there was a large box there where the stone tablets and the sword were hidden. According to Hans, the one on the altar was the same as the stone tablet and the sword they found. He added that it was written on a stone tablet how to deactivate and reactivate the barrier. To reactivate the barrier, it was necessary to remove the sword and break the stone tablet. The question now was, who broke the stone tablet? Then Adlet and Flamey remembered that it was Natchatanya who broke the stone tablet. Goldov immediately went in front of Natchatanya to protect her when Flamey told them that it was her who did it. Adlet wondered how Natchatanya became an imposter. And then he thought that the imposter had to find a way for him to go to the temple and fall into its trap, which Natchatanya had exactly done to him. It was that moment when Natchatanya admitted that she was the imposter among them. She said that she thought that she could easily fool Adlet and that she planned to kill him right away, so she decided to make him her first target. She continued by saying that she had no hatred towards the 6 braves because she just wanted to make peace between the demon god, monsters and humans. To do this, she had to revive the demon god and kill the 6 braves right away. Natchatanya begged the 6 braves to just surrender and let her take care of the demon god. Then she promised that she would not let it destroy the world of the humans. She added that only 500,000 would only be the affected victims on her plans, which terrified them all. Because of this, Adlet told the others to kill Natchatanya immediately. So the other 6 braves rushed at her at once, but Natchatanya turned like mud and was saying something to them. They decided to follow her voice, but Adlet weakened again and lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was inside the temple with Mora and Hans. Hans told him that the barrier was already gone and it was Natchatanya deactivated it, and she immediately ran away. Adlet went to visit Flamey, and when they returned to the temple, Relonia arrived, who was a saint of blood and Adlet's acquaintance. When she showed her mark as one of the 6 braves, they were all surprised because there was another one that they had to identify as an imposter. Meanwhile, the king of Gwenbier, named Daltum, came because he found out about the activation of the barrier. He added that according to the information he had gathered, all the monsters scattered across the continent were heading there. Adlet begged the king to reactivate the barrier and protect it until they defeated the demon god. Then he led the group and they traveled to the abode of the demon god to fight it, as they would also try to identify and defeat the imposter among them. That is the end of Raka Braves of 6 Flowers Season 1. I hope you liked the video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss newly uploaded videos. Thank you for watching.